I thought betrayal couldn't cut deeper than this. But that night, at 2 a.m., everything changed. My stepfather's fists, my uncle's camera, and one whispered warning that shattered my entire life. Be quiet, or you'll regret it. The bruises would fade, but the video they recorded would become my greatest weapon. They thought my silence meant surrender. They were wrong. In that moment of absolute darkness, watching the two men who should have protected me conspire against me, I made a decision. I wouldn't just survive this, I would destroy them with the very evidence they created. My name is Madison Cole, and I'm 28 years old now. But that night feels like yesterday. The grandfather clock in our Denver mansion had just struck 2 a.m. when I heard Victor's footsteps on the marble stairs. Heavy, deliberate. Each step calculated to announce his presence before he reached the living room where I sat reviewing documents about my father's trust fund. Still awake, Madison? His voice carried that dangerous edge I'd learned to fear over the past 3 years since he'd married my mother. Victor Hale stood in the doorway, his 6-foot frame blocking the exit, custom suit still pristine despite the late hour. Behind him, a shadow moved. Uncle Robert, my mother's younger brother, the man who'd taught me to ride a bike when I was 7. Just going through some paperwork, I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I gathered the documents. The trust fund papers, $12 million my father had left me before his death. Money that was supposed to transfer to me on my 30th birthday. Money that Victor had been trying to access through increasingly aggressive legal maneuvers. Those documents belong to the family estate, Victor said, stepping closer. You have no business. They're about my inheritance, my father's money. I stood up, clutching the papers. Not yours, not the family's, mine. That's when everything changed. Victor's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with crushing force. The papers scattered across the Italian leather sofa as he twisted my arm, forcing me down. But what horrified me more than the pain was seeing Uncle Robert raise his phone, the small red recording light glowing in the darkness. "Robert?" My voice cracked. "What are you doing?" He stepped into the light, his face devoid of the warmth I'd known my entire life. Business, Madison, just business. Victor's grip tightened as he leaned close enough that I could smell the bourbon on his breath. You're going to sign those papers tomorrow. You're going to give me power of attorney over that trust, or this video goes to every contact in your phone, your colleagues at the marketing firm, your friends. Everyone will see how unstable you are, attacking your stepfather in his own home. That's not what's happening. I struggled against his hold. Robert, you're recording this wrong. Be quiet, Robert whispered, moving closer with the camera, or you'll regret it. Those words cut deeper than any physical pain. This man who'd been at every birthday, every graduation, who'd held my hand at my father's funeral, he was filming my humiliation, my pain, creating evidence of something that wasn't even true. Victor released me suddenly, and I stumbled backward, my ribs hitting the coffee table's edge. Robert kept filming as I gasped for breath, ensuring he captured my disheveled appearance, my trembling hands. Your mother's asleep upstairs, Victor said, straightening his cufflinks as if nothing had happened. She took her medication early tonight. Even if you tried to wake her, she wouldn't remember anything clearly. And who would she believe? Her successful husband and beloved brother, or her daughter who's been acting erratically since she found out about the trust fund? The betrayal was complete, orchestrated perfectly. They'd planned this, the timing, the video. My mother's conveniently medicated sleep. I looked between them, these two men who'd positioned themselves as family, as protectors, and saw them for what they really were, predators who'd been circling my father's money since the day he died. I won't sign anything, I managed to say, my voice stronger than I felt. Victor smiled, the kind of smile that belonged in boardrooms where he'd crushed smaller companies. You have 48 hours to reconsider. Robert will keep the video safe until then. After that, well, career destruction is just the beginning. We have 3 years of carefully documented concerns about your mental state, witnessed by your poor, worried mother, Who do you think a judge would appoint to manage your trust if you were deemed incompetent? They left me there in the living room, Robert pocketing his phone while Victor went upstairs to sleep beside my mother. I sat among the scattered papers, my wrist throbbing, my ribs aching, but my mind was crystal clear. They thought they'd won. They thought that video was their leverage, their weapon to force my compliance. But sitting there in the darkness, I realized something they'd overlooked in their arrogance. They'd just created evidence of their own conspiracy. They'd filmed themselves committing a crime, and they'd given me 48 hours to figure out how to turn their weapon against them. I gathered the papers slowly, each movement deliberate despite the pain. The trust fund documents went back into their folder, but this time I photographed each page with my phone. Then I walked to my room. Passing the family portraits in the hallway, my father's kind eyes seemed to follow me, giving me strength. They wanted my silence. They'd counted on it, but silence, I decided as I locked my bedroom door, could be a weapon too, and I was going to use it to destroy them both. The next morning, I sat at the breakfast table like nothing had happened, watching Victor read the Financial Times while my mother, Eleanor, pushed eggs around her plate with the vacant expression that had become her signature since marrying him. The bruises on my wrist were hidden beneath a cashmere sweater, my pain masked by practiced calm. "Did you sleep well, darling?" my mother asked, her voice distant, medicated. "Like a baby," I lied, catching Victor's sharp glance over his newspaper. That afternoon, I drove to downtown Denver, to the gleaming tower that housed Hale Investments. From the outside, it looked like success incarnate. 40 floors of glass and steel. Victor's name etched in gold at the entrance. $320 million in managed assets, according to their latest filing. But I knew something the investors didn't. The empire was built on quicksand. My father, Jonathan Cole, had been a real estate developer, honest to a fault. He'd built his fortune slowly, carefully, leaving me not just money, but a legacy of integrity. The $12 million in my trust wasn't just an inheritance, it was the last clean money in a family now drowning in Victor's schemes. I'd started noticing discrepancies months ago. Victor's lavish spending didn't match the company's reported profits. New cars, private jets, a vacation home in Aspen that somehow never appeared on any official documents. Then there were the whispered phone calls, the meetings with Robert that ended abruptly when I entered the room. That evening, I found Robert at his usual country club, nursing a scotch at the bar. He didn't see me at first, too busy texting someone on his phone, probably Victor, updating him on their conspiracy. "Uncle Robert," I said, sliding onto the adjacent bar stool. He nearly dropped his phone, his face cycling through surprise, guilt, and finally, forced casualness. "Madison, didn't expect to see you here." "I've been thinking about our family," I said, ordering a wine I wouldn't drink. "About loyalty, about trust." His jaw tightened. "Have you reconsidered Victor's proposal?" "Tell me something," I said, turning to face him fully. "How much did he promise you? What's your cut for helping him steal my father's money?" Robert's mask slipped for just a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about. 20%? 30? Or just a flat fee for the video?" I kept my voice conversational, aware of the other patrons nearby. "I'm curious what family loyalty costs these days." He leaned closer, his breath sour with alcohol. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. Madison, Victor has connections you can't imagine. Judges, prosecutors, media contacts. Fighting him would be like fighting the entire city. My father fought bigger battles than this." "Your father is dead," Robert said flatly. "And his noble principles didn't protect him from that heart attack, did they?" Something in his tone made my blood freeze. The way he said it, so certain, so cold. My father had been healthy, ran marathons, had perfect checkups. His fatal heart attack at 52 had shocked everyone. "What do you know about my father's death?" I asked quietly. Robert stood abruptly, throwing cash on the bar. "Sign the papers, Madison. It's the smart move. The only move. After he left, I sat there piecing together what I'd learned. The financial discrepancies at Hale Investments went back 3 years, exactly when Victor had started dating my mother. My father's sudden death had come just months after he'd discovered Victor's interest in my mother. And now Uncle Robert, my father's supposed friend, was helping Victor steal the inheritance my father had protected so carefully. That night, I called my old college friend, Daniel Brooks. He'd become a forensic accountant, specializing in corporate fraud. We'd stayed in touch sporadically, but he owed me. I'd helped him through a rough patch in school when his scholarship had fallen through. Madison? His voice was surprised but warm. It's been what, 2 years? Daniel, I need your help. It's about Hale Investments. There was a pause. Victor Hale's company? Your stepfather's firm? Yes, and I think he's running a massive fraud. But I need proof. That's serious. Madison. Dangerous. Even. Hale has a reputation for destroying people who cross him. He's trying to steal $12 million from me. My father's money. Another pause, longer this time. The Cole Trust Fund. I heard about that when your father passed. I'm sorry. By the way, he was a good man. Daniel, there's more. I think my father's death might not have been natural. Jesus, Madison, you need to go to the police. With what evidence? My stepfather owns half the police retirement fund through his investment firm. My uncle is backing him. My mother is too medicated to see straight. I need real proof before I make any moves. Daniel sighed. What do you need from me? Everything. Financial records, transaction histories, investor reports. I need to know where every dollar comes from and where it goes. And I need to know what he's hiding. If we do this, we do it carefully. One wrong move and Victor won't just ruin you financially. People who threaten $300 million empires tend to have accidents. I thought about my father's heart attack, about the certainty in Robert's voice. I know the risks, but 48 hours from now, if I don't sign those papers, Victor and Robert are going to release a video that will destroy my life anyway. What video? I explained what had happened, the stage scene, the deliberate framing. Daniel cursed under his breath. They've been planning this for a while, he said finally. This isn't just about money anymore. Madison, this is about power, control. Victor doesn't just want your trust fund. He wants to own you, to eliminate any threat you might pose to his empire. As I hung up, I realized the full scope of what I was facing. This wasn't just theft or extortion. This was a war, and I was outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of time. But I had one advantage they didn't expect. They thought I was beaten, broken, ready to surrender. They were wrong. My silence wasn't submission. It was preparation. And in 36 hours, when they expected my signature, I'd give them something else entirely, the beginning of their end. Daniel worked through the night while I played my part at home, the dutiful daughter seemingly broken by circumstance. At dinner, I barely touched my food, letting Victor see my trembling hands as I reached for my water glass. It was all performance now, every gesture calculated to make him believe he'd won. You look tired, sweetheart, my mother said, her concern genuine but useless, filtered through the haze of whatever cocktail of pills Victor had her on. Just thinking about the future, I replied, meeting Victor's eyes across the table. He smiled, satisfied with my apparent resignation. The next morning, Daniel called with his first findings. Madison, you need to see this. Can you meet me at the coffee shop on 17th Street? I arrived to find him hunched over a laptop in the corner booth. Baseball cap pulled low. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He hadn't slept either. Hale Investments is hemorrhaging money, he said without preamble, turning the screen toward me. They've been covering it up with a shell game of fake trades and inflated valuations. But look at this. He pulled up a series of transaction records. 6 months ago, Victor moved $45 million from client accounts into a Cayman Islands shell company. He's been using new investor money to pay returns to existing clients. Classic Ponzi scheme. But here's the interesting part. Daniel clicked to another screen showing email headers and metadata. These communications between Victor and Robert go back 2 years. Your uncle isn't just helping with your trust fund, he's been feeding Victor insider information from his position at the Denver Planning Commission. They've been buying land ahead of development announcements, using client money as capital. That's securities fraud, I breathed. And corruption. It gets worse. Remember the Riverside development project that went bust last year? $15 million in investor funds vanished. I tracked the money. It went through 4 shell companies before landing in an account controlled by Robert. He and Victor have been partners in this from the beginning. I stared at the evidence, feeling pieces click into place. They need my trust fund to cover the gaps. They're running out of other people's money to steal. Exactly. The SEC is already sniffing around. 3 complaints have been filed in the past month alone. Victor needs clean money fast, or the whole house of cards collapses. How long before it falls apart naturally? 2 months, maybe 3, but Madison, if he gets your $12 million, he could keep the scheme going another year, maybe 2, long enough to disappear with everything. That afternoon, I attended a family meeting at Victor's office, the 48th hour approaching fast. The conference room reeked of leather and male arrogance, portraits of Victor with politicians and celebrities covering one wall. Robert was already there, phone prominently placed on the table, a reminder of the video they held. "Madison," Victor said, sliding papers across the mahogany table. "I trust you've had time to consider your position." I picked up the pen, feeling its weight. "Before I sign anything, I want to understand exactly what happens to my father's money." "It will be managed responsibly," Victor said. "Invested in stable, profitable ventures that will grow the trust substantially." Like the Riverside development project? The room went silent. Robert's hand moved to his phone. "I don't know what you think you know," Victor started. "I know about the $45 million, the Cayman accounts, the fact that you're 3 weeks away from missing investor payouts." I set the pen down. "I know Robert has been feeding you information from the Planning Commission. I know about the complaints to the SEC. Victor's face darkened. "You have no proof of any of this." "I have everything," I lied smoothly. "Transaction records, emails, recorded phone calls. Did you really think I'd walk in here unprepared? My father taught me better than that." "Your father was a fool," Victor spat, mask finally slipping. "So righteous, so careful. Do you know how easy it was to—" "Victor," Robert warned sharply. But Victor was beyond caution now, his ego bruised. "He was going to expose me, threaten your mother's happiness over some minor accounting discrepancies. The heart attack was a blessing for everyone." There it was, not quite a confession, but close enough. I kept my face neutral even as rage burned through me. "Release the video," I said, standing. "Go ahead, destroy my reputation, but know this, the moment you do, every document I have goes to the SEC, the FBI, and the Denver Post. Your investors will run for the exits. Your empire will crumble in days, not months." "You're bluffing," Robert said, but uncertainty colored his voice. "Try me," I moved toward the door. "Or we can make a deal. You leave my trust fund alone, and I stay quiet about what I know. You have 1 hour to decide." I left them there, 2 predators suddenly realizing they might be prey. Outside, I called Daniel from my car. "Did you get it?" he asked. I touched the recording app on my phone, still running in my pocket. Every word, including Victor basically admitting to murdering my father. It's not enough for a murder charge, but combined with the financial evidence— I know, but I'm not done yet. They still have that video, and they're desperate enough to use it. I need an insurance policy. What are you thinking? Remember Victoria Houseman from business school? She's at the Wall Street Journal now, covering financial crimes. I'm going to give her an anonymous tip about Hale Investments, just enough to start her digging. "Madison, if this goes public before you're ready—" "I'll be ready." Victor just showed me his weakness, his ego. He can't stand being challenged, especially by someone he sees as beneath him. He'll make a mistake, and when he does, I'll be there to document it. That night, I sat in my room, door locked, listening to the recording again, Victor's voice, dismissing my father's death as a blessing, Robert's complicity in 2 years of fraud, my mother's medicated ignorance, maintained deliberately to keep her compliant. The 48 hours were up. My phone buzzed. A text from Victor. "You have 1 week to reconsider. After that, the video goes wide." 1 week. 7 days to gather enough evidence to destroy them without destroying myself. 7 days to avenge my father and reclaim my inheritance. 7 days to turn their weapons against them. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to Victoria Houseman, using an encrypted account Daniel had set up. The subject line read, "Hale Investments, follow the money." The war had begun, and this time, I wouldn't be fighting alone. The confrontation with my mother came 3 days into my week-long deadline. I found her in the sunroom, arranging flowers with mechanical precision, her movements slow and deliberate from whatever combination of Xanax and Ambien Victor had her on. "Mom, we need to talk," I said, sitting across from her. "About what, darling?" She didn't look up from the roses, her fingers trembling slightly as she trimmed the stems. "About Victor, about what he's doing to Dad's money, about what he's doing to you." Her hands stilled. "Your stepfather is a good man, Madison. He takes care of us. He's stealing from us. He's using Dad's money to cover fraud at his company." "Stop." The word came out sharper than I'd heard from her in years. She finally looked at me, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the woman she used to be. Strong, intelligent, present. "Just stop this nonsense." "Mom, I have proof." "I said stop." She stood abruptly, roses scattering across the glass table. "Do you think I don't know? Do you think I'm completely blind?" The admission hit me like ice water. You know?" She sank back into her chair, the brief fire extinguished. "I know enough. I know your father's money is keeping us afloat. I know Victor has problems with the company. But Madison, what would you have me do? I'm 56 years old. I have no career, no income of my own. Without Victor, you'd have your dignity, your freedom. Mom, he's drugging you into compliance. The medications help with my anxiety. They keep you docile." I pulled out my phone, showing her the recording app. "Mom, Victor essentially admitted to having something to do with Dad's death." Her face went white. "No, your father had a heart condition. Dad ran marathons. He had perfect health until Victor came into our lives. Mom, please, I need you to remember. The week before Dad died, what happened?" She shook her head, but I saw something flicker in her eyes, a memory fighting through the pharmaceutical haze. "There was an argument," she whispered. "Jonathan found something in Victor's briefcase, financial documents. They fought terribly. Victor said, Jonathan didn't understand how business really worked." "And then?" "Then your father started having chest pains. Victor was so concerned, insisted on driving him to his private doctor, said the stress was too much for Jonathan's heart." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "The next week, your father was dead." "Mom, Victor has been planning this for years. He targeted you, married you, and now he's trying to steal everything Dad left me, and Uncle Robert is helping him." "Robert?" The betrayal in her voice was heartbreaking. "My brother?" "He filmed Victor assaulting me 3 nights ago. They're using it as blackmail to force me to sign over the trust." My mother stood slowly, swaying slightly. For a moment, I thought she might faint. Then she walked to the window, staring out at the manicured gardens my father had designed. "Madison," she said quietly, "you need to be very careful. Victor is more dangerous than you know. He has connections everywhere, judges, police, even federal prosecutors. If you fight him openly, you'll lose more than money." "Then help me fight him smart. You have access to his office, his computers. You could—" "I can't." She turned back to me, her face a mask of defeat. "I know what you must think of me, choosing comfort over truth, but I'm not strong like you. I'm not strong like your father was." "Mom, please." "I won't help you," she said firmly, But I won't stop you either. And Madison? Check your father's study, the hidden compartment in his desk. He showed it to you when you were young, remember? He kept important things there, things even I wasn't supposed to know about. She left me in the sunroom, her footsteps unsteady as she retreated to her bedroom. I heard the rattle of a pill bottle, the sound of running water, my mother choosing her pharmaceutical prison over facing the truth about the man she'd married. That night, I waited until the house was silent before entering my father's study. Victor had converted it into a secondary office, but the original furniture remained, including Dad's antique desk. I ran my fingers along the underside until I found the hidden latch. The compartment opened with a soft click. Inside were documents I'd never seen before. A private investigator's report on Victor dating back 4 years, before he'd even met my mother. Photos of Victor meeting with known crime figures, bank records showing suspicious transfers, and a handwritten note in my father's careful script. If something happens to me, Madison must be protected. Victor Hale is not what he seems. He's connected to the Torino crime family through shell companies. The FBI has an open investigation. Case number 2019-7823. Contact Special Agent Sarah Park if needed. Don't let Eleanor know about this. Keep Madison safe. J.C. My hands shook as I photographed every document. My father had known. He'd been investigating Victor, preparing to expose him, and then he'd died. The next morning, Daniel called with urgent news. The Wall Street Journal is running a piece tomorrow. Victoria got independent confirmation from 3 sources inside Hale Investments. The SEC is preparing a formal investigation. How long before Victor knows? Hours, maybe less. His media contacts will tip him off. Madison, you need to move now. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a message from Robert. Family emergency. Come to Victor's office immediately. I knew it was a trap, but I went anyway, my phone recording everything. The office was dark when I arrived, only Victor's desk lamp providing light. He sat behind it like a king on his throne, Robert standing in the shadows. The week is up early, Victor said, his voice deadly calm. Someone has been talking to reporters. Someone has been feeding information to the authorities. I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me! He slammed his fist on the desk, making me jump. You think you're clever, little girl? You think you can destroy what I've built? You destroyed it yourself, I said, finding my courage. I just pulled back the curtain. Victor stood slowly, coming around the desk. Robert stepped forward, phone in hand. The video goes live in 60 seconds unless you call off your dogs. Go ahead, I said. Release it. Let the world see what you really are. 2 grown men intimidating a woman over money. Let them see how desperate you've become. You don't understand, Victor said, his voice dropping to a whisper. This isn't just about money anymore. You've declared war on the wrong person. Your father learned that lesson too late. Is that a confession? I asked, knowing my phone was capturing every word. Victor smiled, cold and predatory. Your father's heart gave out because he couldn't handle the stress of real business, just like yours might, if you're not careful. The threat hung in the air between us, but I didn't back down. I couldn't, not when I was this close to justice. The SEC will be here tomorrow, I said. The FBI already has a file on you, case number 2019-7823. The Torino family won't protect you once you become a liability. It's over. Victor. His face went pale at the mention of the case number. He hadn't known about my father's investigation, hadn't known how much evidence existed. You have no idea what you've done, he said quietly. I've done what my father would have wanted, I replied. I've shown the world exactly who you are. As I left his office, I heard Robert's panicked voice. Victor, we need to run. We need to leave tonight. The trap had been reversed. They'd wanted to corner me, but instead, they'd confessed to everything while being recorded. The hunters had become the hunted, and there was nowhere left for them to run. The Wall Street Journal article dropped at 6 a.m. the next morning. Hale Investments under SEC investigation for alleged Ponzi scheme blazed across the financial section. My phone exploded with calls, but I ignored them all except one, Daniel. "Madison, get out of the house, now." "What's wrong?" "Victor just transferred $20 million offshore in the last hour. He's running. But guys like him don't leave loose ends. Where are you?" I was already packing a bag, my instincts screaming the same warning. "Still at home, but not for long. Meet me at the Marriott downtown. Use the back entrance." As I grabbed my father's documents from the hidden compartment, I heard voices downstairs, Victor and Robert, arguing loudly. Then my mother's voice, unusually clear and strong. "Where are you going, Victor?" I crept to the top of the stairs, recording on my phone. "Business trip," Victor said curtly. "Pack light. Eleanor, we're leaving in an hour." "I'm not going anywhere with you," my mother said. "Not after what you've done." "You'll do as you're told." "No," the word rang out like a shot. "I know about Jonathan. I know what you did to my daughter. I'm done being your drugged puppet." There was a crash, sounded like glass breaking. Robert's voice. "Victor, we don't have time for this. The FBI could be here any minute." "Then we take her with us. Insurance." "I'm calling the police," my mother said. "With what phone?" Victor's laugh was cruel. "You can barely stand without your medications. Eleanor, you think anyone will believe you over me?" I'd heard enough. I dialed 911 from my phone, whispering the address and situation before creeping back to my room. Through the window, I saw a black SUV in the driveway, Victor's escape vehicle. But then something unexpected happened. My mother appeared in my doorway, more alert than I'd seen her in years. "Go," she whispered urgently. "Out the back. I'll stall them." "Mom." "I may be weak, Madison, but I'm not going to let him hurt you anymore. Your father would never forgive me." She pressed car keys into my hand, not hers, but the spare keys to my father's old Mercedes, still kept in the garage. "There's something else in the car. Something Jonathan left for you. Now go." I heard Victor calling her name. Footsteps on the stairs. I grabbed my bag and slipped out through the service stairs, the ones the household staff used. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, loud and defiant. "Looking for Madison? She left an hour ago. Gone to the FBI office with everything." Victor's roar of rage followed me out into the morning air. My father's Mercedes started immediately, as if it had been waiting for me. In the glove compartment, I found what my mother had mentioned, a flash drive with my name on it and a sealed envelope. No time to check them now. I peeled out just as I saw Robert running toward the garage. At the Marriott, Daniel was waiting with someone I didn't expect, a woman in a sharp suit with federal credentials. "Madison Cole? I'm Special Agent Sarah Park. Your father contacted me 2 years ago about Victor Hale." "My father's note mentioned you." "He was building a case against Victor. We were days away from arresting him when your father died. The case went cold without our key witness." She studied me carefully. "But it seems you've accomplished what Jonathan started." I handed her my phone with all the recordings, then the flash drive. "I haven't looked at this yet. My father left it for me." Agent Park inserted it into her laptop, and her eyes widened. "This is comprehensive, financial records, recorded conversations, even a confession from Victor about bribing city officials. Your father was thorough." "There's more," I said, and told her about the Torino connection, the suspicious circumstances of my father's death, everything I'd discovered. "We can arrest Victor and Robert today on the financial charges," Agent Park said. "But for your father's death, we'd need more evidence." "What about my mother? She's still at the house." Agent Park was already on her phone, dispatching units. 20 minutes later, we got word. Victor and Robert had been arrested trying to board a private plane. My mother was safe, having locked herself in the panic room my father had installed years ago. Turns out she'd been more aware than any of us had realized. The next few hours blurred together. Federal agents swarming Hale Investments, seizing computers and documents, Victor's investors panicking, demanding answers, the media circus exploding as the story went national, a $300 million fraud, family betrayal, and possible murder. Daniel found me in the hotel lobby that afternoon, exhausted but wired on adrenaline. The SEC just froze all of Hale's accounts. The investors are forming a class action lawsuit. Victor's finished. But I wasn't celebrating yet. There was still the video Robert had made, still the threat hanging over my head. That evening, Agent Park called with an update. Robert is trying to make a deal. He's offering full cooperation against Victor in exchange for reduced charges. What about the video he made of me? What video? There was amusement in her voice. We seized his phone and all his electronics. No video was found. Must have been accidentally deleted when we arrested him. Technical glitch. Happens sometimes. Relief flooded through me. The leverage was gone. The next morning, I visited my mother at a private rehabilitation facility, where she was beginning the process of detoxing from years of unnecessary medications. She looked fragile but determined. "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger," she said, holding my hand. "You were strong when it counted," I replied. "You saved me." She squeezed my hand. "Your father would be proud. You finished what he started." That afternoon, sitting in Agent Park's office, I watched the news coverage of Victor's perp walk. The mighty Victor Hale, reduced to handcuffs and a federal jumpsuit. Robert beside him, both men avoiding the cameras they'd once courted. "The Torino family has cut all ties with him," Agent Park informed me. "He's toxic to them now, and with the evidence you've provided, he's looking at 20 to 30 years minimum." "What about my father's death?" "We're reopening the investigation. Robert seems eager to talk about that private doctor Victor used. Turns out the man lost his license in another state for suspicious patient deaths. It's not proof yet, but we're getting closer." As I left the federal building, my phone rang. Victoria Houseman from the Wall Street Journal. "Madison, I want to thank you for the tip. This story is going to win awards, but more importantly, you've saved hundreds of investors from losing everything." "I just wanted the truth out there," I said. "Well, you've got it. Victor Hale's empire is rubble. Your trust fund has been restored and protected by federal order. You won." Standing there in the Denver sunshine, I thought about my father, about justice, about the price of truth. I had won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of a nightmare I should never have had to live through. But at least it was over. The predators who'd circled my family were in cages where they belonged, and somewhere, maybe, my father was finally at peace. The real devastation began 48 hours after the arrests. I sat in Daniel's office, watching the financial markets react to Hale Investments' collapse on multiple screens. The numbers were staggering, $320 million in assets, evaporating like smoke. "Look at this," Daniel said, pulling up internal documents we'd obtained through the federal investigation. Victor wasn't just stealing from investors. He was using their money to short sell his own clients' stocks, betting against companies he was supposed to be supporting. "Profiting from their failure," I said, disgusted but not surprised. My phone buzzed. "Agent Park." "Madison, Robert just gave us something significant. Can you come to the federal building?" An hour later, I sat across from Agent Park in an interrogation room viewing area, through the one-way glass. Robert looked pathetic, unshaven, wearing orange, his usual arrogance replaced by desperation. "He's been talking for 12 hours straight," Agent Park said. "He wants immunity, but that's not happening. However, he did reveal something about your father." She handed me a transcript. My hands trembled as I read Robert's words. Victor had a doctor on payroll, Dr. Marcus Steinberg, lost his license in Nebraska for euthanizing elderly patients and collecting their insurance. Victor used him for special situations. The morning Jonathan died, Victor had been giving him pills for weeks, said they were vitamins, supplements for his marathon training. They were actually digitalis, heart medication that's lethal in the wrong doses. Jonathan's heart attack was induced. I set down the transcript, my vision blurring with tears of rage and vindication. My father had been murdered. "We've arrested Dr. Steinberg," Agent Park said quietly. "He's confirming everything. Victor promised him $2 million and a new identity." That afternoon, I executed the next phase of my plan. Using Daniel's connections and my restored trust fund, I formed Madison Cole Capital, a legitimate investment firm. Within hours, I was buying up distressed assets from Hale Investments at bankruptcy prices, real properties my father had once developed, legitimately profitable ventures Victor had corrupted. "You're buying his empire?" Daniel asked, incredulous. "I'm reclaiming what he stole and saving the legitimate investors," I corrected. These people didn't deserve to lose everything because they trusted the wrong man. The media caught wind of my moves immediately. Victim becomes Victor. Madison Cole acquires Hale assets, ran in the financial papers. But I wasn't done. I called a press conference at my father's old office building, one of the properties I'd just acquired. The room was packed with reporters, cameras, and in the back, several of Victor's former investors. "My name is Madison Cole," I began, my voice steady. "2 weeks ago, my stepfather tried to steal my inheritance through assault and blackmail. Today, he sits in federal custody, exposed as a fraud and a murderer. But this isn't about revenge. This is about restoration. I announced that Madison Cole Capital would honor all legitimate investments at 60 cents on the dollar, far more than they'd get in bankruptcy court." The room erupted in murmurs. "Furthermore," I continued, "any profits from the salvaged assets will go into a fund for victims of financial fraud. My father believed in building things, not destroying them. I intend to honor that legacy." After the conference, an elderly woman approached me, Mrs. Chen, who'd invested her late husband's pension with Victor. "Your father would be so proud," she said, tears in her eyes. "He helped my husband start his business years ago, never asked for anything in return." That evening, I visited Victor in federal detention. He sat behind reinforced glass, his expensive suit replaced by orange, his face gaunt. He still tried to project menace, but it was hollow now. "Come to gloat?" he asked through the phone. "Come to tell you that your empire is being dismantled brick by brick," I said calmly. "Every corrupt deal reversed, every stolen dollar returned where possible. Your name will be remembered as a cautionary tale of greed." "You think you've won?" He leaned forward. "You have no idea the enemies you've made. The Torino family doesn't forget." "The Torino family just lost $30 million because of you," I replied. "They're more interested in you than me. Besides, I have federal protection now. Your threats are as empty as your accounts." His face contorted with rage. "Your father thought he was untouchable too." "My father's death is now officially a murder investigation. Dr. Steinberg confessed everything. You're going to die in prison. Victor, not in 30 years. You'll get life without parole for murdering Jonathan Cole." The color drained from his face. He hadn't known about Steinberg's arrest. "Robert sold you out completely," I added. "Every crime, every detail. He even had recordings of you planning my father's murder. Turns out he was building his own insurance policy against you." "That's impossible." "You taught him well, too well. He learned to betray family from the best." I stood to leave, then turned back. "Oh, and my mother? She's filing for divorce and testifying against you. She remembers everything now that she's off your drugs. Every threat, every manipulation, every crime you confessed to thinking she was too medicated to remember." I left him there, screaming into the phone until the guards dragged him away. That night, Daniel and I worked late in the new offices of Madison Cole Capital, sorting through the salvageable assets. My phone rang, an unknown number. "Miss Cole?" The voice was gravelly, accented. "This is Antonio Torino. I believe we should talk." My blood ran cold. Daniel mouthed, "Record it," and I nodded, activating the app. "Miss Torino," I said carefully. "You cost my family money, but Victor cost us more, and now the FBI is sniffing around our operations because of his sloppiness. So I want to be clear. We have no issue with you. Victor was a bad investment. You did us a favor exposing him. I'm glad we understand each other." "But Madison," his voice hardened, "stay away from our other interests. You've won your war. Don't start another." The line went dead. I looked at Daniel. who was already forwarding the recording to Agent Park. "Looks like you're getting a permanent FBI detail," he said. As I stood looking out at the Denver skyline, I thought about the journey from that night at 2 a.m. when everything began. Victor had tried to break me with violence and betrayal. Robert had helped him, thinking family meant nothing next to profit. They'd both learned the hard way that some people don't break. They become weapons. The war was almost over. Victor would face trial for murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Robert would get 20 years minimum. My mother was free and healing. The investors would recover most of their money, and my father, finally, would have justice. But I wasn't done. There was one more move to make, one final piece to put in place. And tomorrow, at Victor's bail hearing, everyone would see it. The federal courthouse was packed for Victor's bail hearing. Media, investors, and curious onlookers filled every seat. I sat in the front row with Agent Park and my mother, who looked stronger than she had in years, clear-eyed and determined. Victor was brought in shackled, his attorney, a high-priced shark named Richardson, immediately arguing for bail. "Your Honor, my client has deep ties to the community, no prior record, and poses no flight risk." "Your client attempted to flee the country," the prosecutor interrupted. "He transferred 20 million offshore hours before his arrest." That's when I stood up. "Your Honor, I have evidence relevant to this hearing." The judge, Honorable Patricia Reeves, nodded. "Miss Cole, you may approach." I handed the bailiff a flash drive. This contains security footage from the Hale Investments building, dated the night before my father's death. The prosecutor played the video on the courtroom screen. It showed Victor and Dr. Steinberg in Victor's office, with audio enhanced by FBI technicians. "The dosage needs to be precise," Steinberg was saying. "Too much and it's obviously murder. Too little and he survives." "I don't care about precise," Victor replied. "I care about permanent. Jonathan dies tomorrow, or you do." The courtroom erupted. Richardson objected frantically, but the damage was done. "This footage was hidden in my father's cloud storage," I explained. "He'd installed a hidden camera after growing suspicious of Victor. The metadata is intact. Authentication verified by the FBI." Judge Reeves looked disgusted. "Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial for capital murder." As they dragged Victor out, he locked eyes with me, his face twisted with hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said clearly. "It is." That afternoon, I met with the Wall Street Journal's Victoria Houseman for an exclusive interview. She'd been documenting everything since my first anonymous tip. "The story gets more incredible with each revelation," she said. "But I have to ask, how does it feel to have orchestrated Victor's complete destruction?" "I didn't orchestrate anything," I replied. "I just pulled back the curtain. Victor orchestrated his own downfall the day he decided to murder my father." "What about Robert? He was your uncle, someone you trusted." "Trust is earned, not inherited. He chose greed over family. Now he's facing 20 years minimum, possibly more if they connect him to the murder conspiracy." Victoria leaned forward. "My sources say the Torino family contacted you." "No comment on that." "Fair enough. What's next for Madison Cole Capital?" "Rebuilding what Victor destroyed. I've already rehired 60% of the legitimate employees from Hale Investments. We're returning money to defrauded investors, and we're establishing the Jonathan Cole Foundation for Financial Crime Victims." "Funded with?" "The proceeds from liquidating every asset Victor owned, his cars, houses, art collection, everything. He wanted my father's $12 million. He's going to watch from prison as I turn his entire fortune into charity in my father's name." That evening, I convened the first board meeting of Madison Cole Capital. Around the table sat Daniel, Agent Park, who joined as head of security compliance, my mother as ethics advisor, and surprisingly, Mrs. Chen, the elderly investor I'd helped, who turned out to be a retired forensic accountant. "First order of business," I announced. "We've received acquisition offers from 3 major firms wanting to buy our recovered assets." "How much?" Daniel asked. "70 million combined." That's double what you paid in the bankruptcy auction, Mrs. Chen noted approvingly. We're not selling, I said. These assets include properties my father developed. We're going to manage them right, the way he would have wanted. My mother spoke up, her voice strong. I want to discuss the Employee Assistance Program. Many of Victor's staff were coerced or threatened into compliance. They need psychological support, not just new jobs. It was remarkable seeing her like this, engaged, clear-minded, advocating for others. Victor's control over her was truly broken. After the meeting, Agent Park pulled me aside. The murder trial starts in 3 months. You'll be the star witness. I'll be ready. There's something else. Robert wants to see you. He says he has information about other victims, people Victor destroyed before your father. I considered this. Set it up, but I want full FBI presence. 2 days later, I sat across from Robert in federal detention. He looked destroyed, aged 10 years in 2 weeks. I know you hate me, he began. Hate requires emotion. You're nothing to me now. He flinched. I deserve that, Madison. I was weak. Victor promised me wealth, status. I betrayed everything that mattered for money that's now worthless. Is that all? Your apology? No. He pulled out a handwritten list. These are 12 other families Victor destroyed over the years. People who died mysteriously. Businesses that collapsed after crossing him. Your father wasn't the first. Madison. He was just the first one smart enough to gather evidence. I studied the list, recognizing some names from Denver's business community. Why give this to me now? Because I'm going to die in prison either way. The Torinos have a long reach, at least this way. Those families get justice too. You could have stopped him years ago. I know, Robert said quietly. Every name on that list is my responsibility too. I enabled a monster because I wanted to be rich. Now I'm nothing but prisoner 78954. I stood to leave, then paused. Mom's getting better. Thought you should know your sister's finally free. His eyes filled with tears. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her yourself, if you survive long enough. That night, I forwarded Robert's list to Agent Park and Victoria Houseman. Within hours, the FBI opened 12 new investigations. Families who'd suffered in silence for years suddenly had hope for answers. My phone rang, another unknown number. Madison Cole? A woman's voice, elderly but sharp. My name is Dorothy Freeman. Your father helped my late husband start his business 30 years ago. I heard about what you're doing with the recovered assets. How can I help you, Mrs. Freeman? I don't need help. Dear, I'm calling to offer you something. I own a building downtown, 40,000 square feet of office space. I want to donate it to your foundation. Jonathan Cole saved my family once. It's time I returned the favor. As I thanked her, fighting back tears, I realized something. My father's true legacy wasn't the money Victor had tried to steal. It was the lives he'd touched, the people he'd helped, the goodness he'd put into the world. And that was something Victor could never destroy, no matter how hard he tried. Tomorrow would bring Victor's formal murder indictment. The financial crime trial would follow. Robert would testify against his former partner, sealing both their fates, and I would be there for all of it, representing not just my father, but all of Victor's victims. The war was ending exactly as I'd planned, not with violence or vengeance, but with truth, justice, and the complete legal destruction of the men who'd thought they were untouchable. 6 months later, I stood in the federal courthouse for the last time, watching as Judge Reeves delivered Victor's sentence, life without parole for the murder of Jonathan Cole, plus 45 years for financial crimes to run consecutively. The courtroom was silent as the verdict echoed off the walls. Victor, now gaunt and hollow-eyed, turned to look at me one final time. There was no more rage, no more arrogance, just the empty stare of a man who'd lost everything. They led him away in shackles, and I knew I'd never have to see his face again. Robert received 25 years, with possibility of parole and 15 for his cooperation. He'd testified for 3 days straight, detailing every crime, every victim, every dollar stolen. His betrayal of Victor was complete, just as his betrayal of our family had been. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed, but I walked past them to where my mother waited. She stood tall, no longer the fragile, medicated ghost Victor had created. 6 months of recovery had restored the woman my father had fallen in love with. Strong, compassionate, clear-eyed. "It's over," she said, taking my hand. "No," I replied, looking at the Madison Cole Capitol building across the street, where the Jonathan Cole Foundation now occupied 3 floors. "It's just beginning." 1 year later, Madison Cole Capital managed over $500 million in assets, all ethically sourced, all transparent. We'd helped recover funds for over 300 victims of financial fraud. The Jonathan Cole Foundation had provided free forensic accounting services to 147 families uncovering white-collar crime. I stood in my office, my father's old office, actually, in the building Mrs. Freeman had donated, looking at his portrait on the wall. Beside it hung a framed quote he'd written in his journal. "Truth is the only foundation that lasts." Daniel knocked and entered, now my chief operating officer. "The Times wants to do a feature. 1 year later. Where are they now? That sort of thing." "Tell them no. We're not about the past anymore." "And the movie producers?" "Definitely no." He smiled. "Figured as much. By the way, your mom's here for the board meeting." My mother entered, followed by our board members. She now ran the Victim Assistance Program, having become a certified counselor herself. Her transformation was perhaps the greatest victory of all, from victim to advocate, from broken to healer. "Before we begin," she said, "I wanted to share something. Robert sent another letter." "Mom, you don't have to." "I want to." She pulled out the letter. "He's teaching financial literacy to other inmates, trying to prevent them from returning to crime. He says it's the only useful thing he can do with his remaining years." I felt nothing, no forgiveness, no hatred. Robert was simply a consequence now, a cautionary tale about choosing greed over family. That evening, I visited my father's grave for the first time since the trial ended. The headstone was simple, elegant, just as he would have wanted. Jonathan Cole, builder of dreams, defender of truth. I placed fresh flowers, white roses, his favorite, and sat on the grass beside him. "We did it, Dad," I said quietly. "Victor will die in prison. Your money is safe, doing good in the world. Mom's free and healthy. The foundation has helped so many people already." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I could almost hear his voice, warm and proud. "You were always stronger than you knew. Madison." As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed, a message from Agent Park. "Thought you should know. The Torino investigation led to 31 arrests. Your recordings of Antonio's call were crucial. You're safe now, completely safe." 3 months later, I stood before an audience of 500 financial professionals, delivering a keynote on corporate fraud prevention. Behind me, slides showed the Hale Investments collapse, the recovery efforts, the rebuilding. "The cost of white-collar crime isn't just financial," I said. "It's human, lives destroyed, families torn apart, trust shattered, but silence is what allows it to flourish. Speaking truth, demanding justice, protecting the vulnerable, that's how we fight back." The audience erupted in applause, but I wasn't finished. "My father once told me that money is just a tool. It can build or destroy, heal or harm. Victor Hale chose destruction. He murdered my father for money, destroyed hundreds of lives for profit. He's now serving life in federal prison, his empire dismantled, his name synonymous with greed and betrayal." I paused, scanning the room. "But from his ashes, we built something better. The Jonathan Cole Foundation has helped recover $200 million for fraud victims. Madison Cole Capital has created 500 jobs, all with profit sharing and ethical guidelines. We proved that you can succeed in business without becoming a monster." The night this all started, at 2 a.m., when Victor thought he'd broken me with violence and blackmail, when my uncle filmed it all as leverage, they thought my silence meant surrender. They were wrong. Silence was my weapon. Patience was my strategy, and truth was my victory. As I left the stage, I thought about that night, about the journey from victim to victor. Victor had tried to steal $12 million. Instead, he'd given me the opportunity to build something worth so much more: justice, healing, and a legacy my father would be proud of. That night, I opened my laptop to find an email from an unknown sender. The message was simple: "Your father would be so proud. Thank you for showing us that David can still defeat Goliath, a fellow survivor." I smiled, closing the laptop. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new cases to investigate, new victims to help. But tonight, for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. Victor was caged forever. Robert was paying his debt. My mother was free and thriving. The criminals who'd thought themselves untouchable had been touched by justice. And somewhere, I knew my father was finally at rest. I looked out at the Denver skyline, lights twinkling like stars against the darkness. The city Victor had once claimed to own now stood as testament to his downfall. Every building, every light, every success story we helped create was another nail in the coffin of his legacy. "This is for you, Dad," I whispered to the night. "Every victory, every life saved, every truth revealed. Your death wasn't in vain." The war was over. We had won. And from the ashes of betrayal, we'd built an empire of justice that would last long after the last prisoner had served their time. My name is Madison Cole. I am my father's daughter, and this is how I turned two predators' weapon against them, transforming a moment of darkness at 2 a.m. into a lifetime of light for hundreds of victims who thought hope was lost. Justice isn't revenge. It's better. It's complete, legal, and eternal destruction of those who prey on the innocent. And it starts with one person refusing to be silent. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about Madison's journey. What would you have done in her situation? Your perspectives mean everything to me.